Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by John Deere. I've got Greg Machinery Pete Peterson on to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Greg, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Casey, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing real good. How'd your Vikings do this week?
We were off this week, so
Okay.
I think we're feeling super fortunate. We're 3-2, given we've been behind like 90% of the time, but finding a way. And now we've just got to figure out which quarterback we want to play up here. So it's all good.
You can't have a good football team without a quarterback controversy earlier in the year.
Well, now you, my friend, you're down there getting spoiled with like the best quarterback. How many years has Mahomes been playing now? 6 or 7?
Something 8 maybe, yeah.
You're just pencil in AFC title game / Super Bowl every year.
I don't know,
you
man.
get spoiled.
This year they have a very rocky start this year, and they've had some injuries and they've had some people out and those kind of things in key positions, but it's just they're having a hard time getting the synergy going. But it's starting to chin. You know, they won last week here and they moved things through. But I was watching. You know, I love it when they have 2 Monday Night Football games. It's like
it is nice.
It's like the greatest thing ever. And you watch the Bills got beat last night by the Falcons, and they couldn't get anything going. That was just a rough game for them. And then who else? Who's the other game I watched? It was Washington and the Bears. I think Washington ended up winning that game, but it was a back and forth. So
now you guys beat the Lions, right?
We did, yeah.
So thank you for that in the division. That helps us out. We appreciate it. The Lions have been kicking our butt for a couple of years.
Yeah, that was a tough game for them too. I mean, that was just
NFL. It's all about injuries and momentum, and are your key players healthy and happy. Now, did Chris Jones run out plays last week against the Lions?
He did okay. He had a few. He had a few that came together, and
he's an awesome player. I just saw the clip the week before when they were getting on him about not running it out. But hey, you know, easy for me to say. I'm not out there getting smashed by these huge Titans every 60 minutes every week.
Some big fellas out there, big humans running around out there.
Yes.
That can go very fast. What I learned in physics was, you know, mass times what's that? Mass times velocity, you know.
So you're a football guy. I weighed 165 in high school, so I stayed on the basketball court and stayed on the outside. Just let me shoot. So
a lot smarter than getting your.
I'd have been broken in half. You guys smashing around. No, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I enjoy it. My favorite time of the year, fall and football. I can't beat it with a stick. Love it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the marketplace. We have seen, like we've been talking about, we've seen some movement in the marketplace, and we've seen some things move around. You got a couple of good examples this week, some stuff that you saw sell.
Yeah, I think it really is starting to firm up and confirm what we've been talking about all year, or at least since late February, Casey, that actually the used market is solidifying. We talked about, actually, before we started recording here, one of our friends, you know, Jim Reitzel with Reitzel Tractor out in Eden, Ohio, I think.
Yep.
Great guy, great legendary family out there, used equipment. And I saw Jim had a post on social media the other day talking about a shortage of good used equipment. Now that first time you see it, you kind of go, oh, you know, because it jars against the current reality in ag, which is what it is for sure. But you know, I think good used is firming up. So last Wednesday, for example, a couple sales caught my eye. Our friends at Big Iron had a sale. Now, it is tougher down south with cotton equipment, no question. For example, they had a 22 model John Deere CS770 cotton stripper, 593 engine hours. Again, out of Milton, Kansas. Sold for $525,250. Now, I don't see many of those. But when I compared it to the current average dealer ad price at machinerypete.com, I got like 15 of them for sale today. Average ad price is almost $856,000. So if you do my Machinery Pete ratio, average auction price as a percentage of average dealer ad price, that's 61.4%. Now my sweet spot the average over the years on that ratio is 71 to 76%. If you're in there, it's pretty solid. You start drifting down to the low 60s, that's ouch. Now, conversely, the same sale from the same location, Milton, Kansas, Big Iron last Wednesday, they sold a 22 model 8R370 with 1,472 hours. That went for $321 and a quarter. So when I do the math right now, Casey, that was just over the average so far this year on an 8R370. Average auction price is $315.2 basically. Average dealer ad price is $418, almost $419. So when you do my machine repeat ratio here, it's 75.2%. So that's right in the stable range. And we saw the same thing. Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but on the combine side, on that sale last Wednesday by Big Iron, had a 21 model S770, 1,256 engine hours out of Kansas, went for $220. Now there, if you do the machine repeat ratio on a S770, it's 64.4%. So used combines, they're a little lower than used tractors, but kind of stabilizing a little bit. Also, that same day last week, Wednesday, Steffes Group had their big auction out of West Fargo, online consignment. A pair of 9RX 640s, a 24 and a 23, both a little over 600 hours on them. Went for $481 and $472. And when you do the math here, the average auction price is $477, $136 on a 9RX 640. Average dealer ad price $646,000 and change. My machine repeat ratio is 73.8%. So even on a large late model tractor like that, that gap between the average auction price and dealer ad price is in my historic norm, 73%, almost 74%. So I think, that's what we've been talking about, a little firming up. Well, it is firming up here throughout 25.
On your combines, on the combine segment you talked about, that's 64%, right? Is that what you said?
Yep,
so
64.4.
How's that? Is that to me feels like that would be a pretty normal range on a combine?
Well, combines always do run a little bit lower than tractors over the 25 years I've been tracking this stat. Now, I would say that a decade ago, in the downturn from mid 13 through, you could argue dragging into 16, maybe even to 17. My machine repeat ratio on combines back then it dipped under 60. So it got to like 56 to 59%. So at 64.4, that you could argue that's close. I would say just under maybe what I normally see on combines, maybe 67%ish. Now back in 2021, when things were roaring, the machine repeat ratio on combines, that got up, it gets up high 70s, low 80s. But that was then, this is now. So combines, again, they started to adjust in 23, all through 23, all through 24. One thing that I do look at that's interesting, though, is the number sold at auction, and huge drop-offs this year on this late model big stuff. Because 24 last year was an absolute avalanche. It was the record level of this stuff, late model stuff. So again, we talked about it last week, but the number of 0 to 3-year-old 300 horse tractors sold at auction through September was down like 62% versus last year. So that's why, in part, why we're seeing this firming up. Of course, not much news being sold. Dealers working through their inventory. Of course, they'd like it to be lower, but when I look back to a year ago, collectively where the dealer side is inventory-wise is night and day better than it was. And I think that's why we're seeing this firming up.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we've talked about here, we've seen some movement in the right direction, and we're hitting the bottom we've talked about, but those are all good landing points. I would say, in my experience with the combine side of it, if you're somewhere between that 64 to 68%, whether you're at the top of the market or the bottom of the market, that would be what I would consider to be a normal range. And right now it feels like it's on the lower side of that normal range, but it's, working its way through there and moving things through. As you're looking at where things are moving at now over the last couple of weeks, you got the government shutdown, crop prices the way they are, and no one's really doing backflips right now for anything that's too exciting. But I guess as you're watching things, Greg, in the auctions that you've been to, any conversations you've had with folks that you would say, hey, the sentiment's feeling like a little bit different than it's felt over, leading up to this point?
last couple of weeks, I wouldn't say so. I just think we're going to be busy the end of the year, November, December.
Yeah.
And the auction world, a lot of the times things can happen pretty fast. Sales can come, a lot of them are planned out 2-3 months ahead, but a lot of them aren't. And so I think it's going to be busy. We talked last week. We've seen a almost 15% jump in the raw number of auctions so far this year. I think that's going to pick up. But again, a comment from a guy like Jim Reitzel, who's lived in the used equipment space and his family's been in it, just life and blood. And when you see someone like that starting to verbalize, starting to see, and Jim wasn't blowing smoke. He's just saying, this, and they sell really good quality used is what they specialize in. So, like I reported on a couple weeks ago, you see something like a John Deere 8310 with like 4,100 and some hours go for 111.2 recently, like fourth highest price. That's the kind of stuff Jim sells. And when a guy like that says it's getting tight, and it makes sense, right? I mean, because farmers, if you're not buying new, and didn't just happen, right? It's stretched out now for quite a while. Yep. So everyone's trying to make their equipment lines stretch out. But if you need a new planter, a new combine, a new tractor, people are turning to the used market. And what they want and need is the best condition used, whether that's 3 years old, like that 8R370 big iron sold last week, or, that 8310 or a Magnum, whatever.
Yep.
It's competitive bidding for that stuff, even when times are tight like this. So it can seem counterintuitive to people. Like Machinery Pete and Casey Seymour are saying the used market is solidifying. Well, this is why I rely on data. So 36 years, it's like I'm just reporting what the numbers are showing, and they've been firming up since the end of February. Now, doesn't mean 6 weeks from now things might drop off. I don't know. I think politically, everyone's just waiting, assuming there'll be a government bailout step. I think we touched on it last week. I don't view that as like farmers getting that and going, oh my gosh. It's just trying to help keep them whole, keep the bills paid. So I don't think it's a goose to anything, but certainly it won't hurt the used equipment market, no question.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think at the end of the year, we're going to see some stuff. Aaron Fennell and I talked about this quite a bit, but this year is one of those years where everything is waiting to the last possible minute to get things purchased and push things through, and the decision-making process has been prolonged for a magnitude of reasons, right? Which are all very understandable. Right. And as you're watching the thing pull through, you're seeing more and more of those kind of jump into the realm. Like you're still seeing used combines being sold this time of the year, right? Like, doesn't make a lot of sense, right? It's a last minute thing, right? You start looking at how late planters are being sold into planting season, right? Not like, hey, when the trade comes in, I'm ready to drop mine off, and I'm ready to make that trade right now so I can go to the field and work with it, right? Yeah. Those are the kind of things that you see happening, and that's just, again, it's that decision making process and getting things pushed through. It's just is what it is, and it's just one of those years, and it's not the first time this has happened. I mean, I've been through these many years where when things are tight, there's this wait and see, and they finally make that decision, and you're ready to move things forward. And that's where we're at right now. And I think that's the spillover we're going to see going into the end of the year, where there could be some movement there. Like you said, November, December could be very busy this year, just based around those very last minute type of approaches with. I guess, we do have some issues we got to take care of, via taxes, those kind of things, and working our way through that. Knock on wood, we get some, get the government back open, which, don't get me started on that. Get the government back open and put that into place. But I think as you're watching these things move through, that's the opportunity that you're going to see some of those, see some payments and stuff like that come through. A lot of that's going to go take care of cover debt and those kind of things first. But as we move back into anything left over, there could be some of that over on the especially with 179 the way it is now.
Yeah, it could well be. And I think that the big beautiful bill, I believe, increase that Section 179, the amount you can immediately depreciate. And it's just kind of laying there. No one's, when the money's not flowing, you don't think about it. But the one thing I would say, Casey, it's just becoming more and more clear to me as we look at this period, and this solidifying has been holding since February, is when I compare the biggest downturn I've ever seen was back, mid 13 through 15. And that took almost 3 years for the auction prices to kind of find this footing.
Yeah.
And this time around, it took maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
And to me, now, if you really look at that, a big reason of that is because the dealer consolidation over the past decade, which people feel how they feel about that, but it's just been business. But the reason they wanted to do that at the corporate level was to be more efficient through downturns. So as I analyze the space 3.5 decades, again, the space is more efficient right now. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's just, it's handled this downturn so differently than the last one, the biggest one ever. It's night and day. So to me, the used farm equipment space is moving towards the used automotive space, becoming faster. Now, again, as a farmer, I understand you don't like that. You lose one of your local dealers. They consolidate that whole thing. But you have to be aware of these things, and particularly the change, because this short period to get to solidifying used values, as this hasn't happened before like this. And right or wrong, it's holding. Now you got to be aware of that, because if you, again, this is why I wrote in January in Farm Journal column, like, hey, eyes wide open here. This downturn is, we're in this ag cycle we're in. Every time in your memory in the past, or your dad or your grandpa, in terms of equipment, used equipment wise, there was this lag. And you were kind of, as a farmer, you were kind of somewhat in the driver's seat. You didn't have any money, but dealers always had this overhang of used. And now it's shortened and crunched to the point when Jim Reitzel says, hey, there's a shortage. Now that has ramifications if you're sitting back thinking, well, maybe in late 26, I'll make my move get up into that 5-year-old. Well, the way it's shaken out now, even though times are, brutally tough, it's going to cost you, it's going to be, that deal is going to be not to your advantage.
Yeah.
That's just the way it's shaken out right now. And again, we'll see what happens 4, 6, 8 weeks from now, but you got to be aware of these trends if you want to make your money work for you.
Absolutely. Always know what's going on around you makes a world of difference. So, all right, great. Probably a good place to stop there. Folks want you to come speak at their event or come out to their auction. The easiest way to do that, just go to machinerypete.com and click on the contact page.
Yep. Phone number there, call our office. Happy to come out. Calendar's getting full. Got a lot of great visits coming up. So looking forward to a great end of the year.
Yeah, me too. Well, Greg, appreciate you being on the podcast this week. We'll catch you again next.
Sounds great, Casey.
Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcast after these messages.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a deer.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Mark with Sean Hackett. Sean Hackett is with Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida. He's nice enough to come on and talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Sean, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Casey. Real good.
That's good, man. All right, so we are in however many days it's been, this government shutdown thing. Anxiously waiting on this October report. Obviously, it's not going to happen because the government shut down. Even if they opened up tomorrow, it wouldn't happen. And at the rate we're headed now, likelihood of getting a November report are pretty low, which means we're probably going to be somewhere in January before we get a October, November, and a December report all at the same time. I don't know how else to put this other than this. This is one of those things where the way we see commodities trading right now on the grain side, across the board, the way things are trading right now are all due because of the government shutdown, what we see happening, and the way things are moving along. The price of corn has fallen off, I don't know, 10 or 15 cents since it started. We're down around that 410, 411 range. And we're going through harvest right now. Plenty of guys are getting stuff moving along. There's a good segment of farmers that have to sell right now, and they're going to be selling into the lowest of the lows of the year. And this is all because the government can't come together just for a minute, and just for a minute to bring stuff together and make things work the way they're supposed to. So I guess if anyone's sitting out there watching this right now, and you're hearing me say this right now, the United States government is not friendly to the American farmer. And I'm going to just put a period. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, or somewhere in the middle. You guys stop it with this crap that you're doing right now. You're going to force people to sell stuff into a bad time, and you're going to come around the January report pops up, and you're going to have this big slingshot effect that's going to completely change the price, and it's going to go crazy. But once again, the American government is going to make the American farmer not have the profitability they need to have because of the way these stupid reports come out. So that's my soapbox for the day, Sean. As you look at this, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's extraordinarily unfortunate that at a critical time for price discovery, especially at a time when we have a really good idea that the crop has been way overestimated in August and in September, that this could have been a huge catalyst for changing the price of corn and soybeans and in giving farmers a better chance to sell. And now we're not going to get the signal, as you said, probably until January. And by that time, you don't have an option not to sell if you don't have storage, or you have to sell. You have, so all the sales that have to be made by that time will be made, Casey. And quite frankly, for the most part, if you've had to make those sales, most of the time it's due to financial reasons, which means you probably don't have money to buy calls against it to play the upswing when the slingshot comes in January and February, like it did last year, right?
Yeah.
So now you're sitting here and saying, okay, now I got a $485 corn price, but I already sold so much corn at $4 or $380 or whatever, that I just locked myself into a financial bind. And even when it wasn't the government shutdown, the USDA is notorious for constantly biasing themselves to the bearish side of supply, only to turn tail 3 to 6 months later in a quarterly grain stocks report, or just alter things. And all of a sudden, what could have really helped the farmer today doesn't really help them 6 months from now. And it's been a constant theme for the last, especially the last 5 years. I've noticed that just seems that they're much more skewed than they've been before. I'm not sure why that's the case or not, but this government shutdown is just devastating because, look, we know what trades our markets now are the algorithms, and the algorithms feed off of headline news and they feed off USDA news. And if the USDA had come out with a corn yield in the month of October down 3 or 4 or 5 bushel to the acre, we would get a big rally, a short covering rally, because the algorithms would buy into the market. And now they're not going to get that signal now, so they're not going to buy. And and on top of it, when you don't have clarity, when you don't have transparency, you withdraw money from the market. Like when you don't know what's going on, when you don't have transparency, when there's too much confusion and too much uncertainty, what do as a person? You take chips off the table. That's what you do. So it's causing an illiquidity in the market. It's causing people to withdraw from the market. On top of it, we have an endless tit for tat. We thought everything was good. We thought everything was great with China and when the U.S. heading into this end of October meeting. Then the U.S. last week puts controls on Chinese ships, and then the Chinese retaliate and say, "Well, we're going to, mess around with rare earth metals some more and some ships." And then Trump says, "Well, you shouldn't have done that." And then he says 100% tariffs on everything that we import from China. And then China says, we're going to put some more fees on more ships and more to come. Yep. Then Bessent says he's in talks with the second-hand guy here in the U.S. at this meeting, and more talks on the way. He's still optimistic they're going to meet. I don't know what to think. The stock market has one of the biggest, knockdowns in one day in years. Then one of the biggest rises in years. Now with the retaliation last night, it's back on its heels again. You know what, Casey? You just have to just say, you can't game a system that is trading like that.
Yep.
What's going to happen later today, tonight, tomorrow morning, an hour from now, 5 minutes from now? I have no idea, and nobody else does either. I'm looking like everybody else on the latest tweet from Trump, or the latest news from Besson, or the latest news from China. That's where we're at, and it's extremely unfortunate that we're in this situation, and specifically for the grains, it just keeps them depressed at a time that we just need. We need a shot in the arm, and maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised, and all this will lead to them meeting and a trade deal and some purchases, and we get a come to Jesus moment and a big rally in late October or into November, and we get surprised. I mean, we got surprised the last time. No one thought anything was going to happen, and then it did, and then things did take off after a long period of ugliness. I'm hoping, Casey. Look, right now the betting markets that bet on these things, that you can bet on futures of what are the chances that there's going to be a trade deal. Right now, I think they're at 65% chance. It's not zero.
Yeah.
I'm calling it a 50-50 flip. So there's at least a half a chance it'll happen. There's a half a chance it won't happen. Obviously, for the farmer and for the U.S. ag industry, I'm praying that all this is part of a tit for tat, and we will get some kind of a trade deal with some purchases committed to that provides some type of a short covering rally that the farmer can have a chance to sell something later on in October or November. We also have Supreme Court listening to hearings on the 5th of November about whether or not the tariffs are actually legal, or a portion are illegal or not legal. I actually think there's a 50-50 chance that they say some of the tariffs are not legal. Boy, would that create a big short covering rally in the market. So, unfortunately, right now, given that that the government can't seem to find a way to reopen, and we're not able to get any information from the USDA, we're subject to these balls in the air that are very hard to predict. And that's unfortunately where we're at, and it really, really sucks. That's all I can say. There's nothing else we can do other than let time pass by and see if we can't catch a break. We don't need a big break. We just need a break, because there's so many shorts in the market that if you did get a surprise deal or a surprise Supreme Court decision that half the tariffs are not legal or something like that, and you have to immediately remove them, you could get quite a rally, on a short covering rally, and get a much bigger move than anyone's anticipating. I just don't know how to forecast any of that, other than to say each one's probably a 50-50 shot. All we need is one, and I'm hoping one of them comes through.
Yeah. Well, and the bad thing about on the soybean side of it, if they do say to get together and they say, all right, cool, we're gonna work out this whole tariff thing, and we're gonna charge equal amounts of tariffs, and everyone's gonna be happy, and it's so much lower and those things. There's so many soybeans out there right now. As far as storage goes, there's going to have to be a big glut of soybeans, even just to get the soybean price to move. You know what I mean? It's just all of this stuff is just one big chain reaction, one thing after another. And then you sit here and you look at this, and it's like everybody is over here, throwing flamethrowers at each other and doing all this crap. And then sitting down over the other side are all these American farmers out here that are sitting there holding the bag of something that they didn't do. Right. And that's not their fault that these things are this way. And they're the ones that are going to suffer. They're going to take 100% of the blow with this. And this is so frustrating to me, Sean, because it's like almost like what they come back with is, oh, don't worry about it, Mr. American Farmer. We're going to throw something at you here.
We literally spent 20 years gearing our U.S. ag industry, especially in soybeans, for export.
Yeah.
To China. I mean, we geared the whole system for that. And then you cannot in overnight just to say, well, we're just not going to do that anymore when the whole industry is geared for that. You can move away from it and you can find other ways from it, but none of that is an overnight sensation. That is years of planning, years of developing, years of strategizing. And of course, with the government not even can't even agree to reopen, I mean, good luck trying to get all that going. And so that 3 years from now, we can have demand that's, we can shift demand to more to other sources where we don't need to sell as much to the Chinese. Like, you just can't turn a system that's been geared this way. You've been telling farmers produce and sell to China. That's the game, and the game's changed. And we want in our podcast before the election, we warned that if Trump got elected, that this could, would probably be very devastating for the U.S. ag industry for at least a couple of years, like it was last time. And that, while I understand, that. In the long run, maybe, his policies potentially could be better in the long run than maybe Biden's policies were, or than maybe Kamala's were. I'm not trying to pick sides. I'm just saying, but in the short run, for agriculture, you knew you were going to just get obliterated, and we are getting obliterated. And so now are we back to, being on the dole of ever-ending government payments to survive, which of course they can't do until they reopen anyway.
Right, exactly. That was the other side of that whole thing.
I'm not laughing like it's funny. I'm just laughing like
it's laughing out of disgust. You know what I mean? Like you can't win for losing. You know what I mean? It's like you just can't get ahead of the curve here. And it's like every little thing that happens is just one more pinprick in the balloon that's.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be negative. I'm not a negative person, and I'm always trying to be optimistic. But the situation right now really, really, really sucks. Like really bad, really, really bad. And like I said, it's just a confluence of things coming together. So we can't send money to the farmers because the government's closed. We can't get data because the government's closed. We have no idea if we're going to get a trade deal done with what's going on. We have no idea what the Supreme Court will decide. We have harvest raging along. We have a storage crisis, and we have farmers needing to sell. And to your point, that even if we do cut a trade deal and we do get some demand, futures may go up, but the cash price may still not go up that much because we have so much to move before we can get. So meaning like you could still get you could have let's say there's a trade deal and China commits to buying a whole bunch, and we get $1 rally in soybeans. Maybe you only get a 30-cent rally in the cash for a little while. So
basis will get you. You know what I mean? That's the side.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel that may that's what in the beginning that's what may happen for a while until we move some of the stuff. Then they can get a little more exciting. So I don't know what to say. It's I remember 2018 was the last time we kind of were in this spot. Of course, government payments were being sent out like crazy and the farmer was getting paid. And so it was not as bad because of that. But that's the last time that I remember being in a situation where, we're just, everything is, and then we had the government shut down back then, if you recall, but we already had the government payments approved. So the money was flowing to the farmer. That hasn't even happened yet. And that's what makes this situation actually way worse. I saw a chart of farmer margins or farmer profitability or whatever, or stress. Forget exactly what it was, and only if you look at since 1970, we're at the third worst overall economic situation for farmers right now in history. 85 was worse during the farm crisis, as you know. Sure. And I think the late 90s was a little bit worse when we had the Asian financial crisis. And then we had long-term capital management blow up because MIT people thought that they knew what they were doing, and they didn't. And this is the third worst in terms of costs versus price versus margin versus debt. I'll have to pull that chart up again, but it's the third worst situation at the moment. And that's factoring in government payments or lack thereof. It's only two other times have we been in a bind, shall we say?
Yeah.
So I don't know what to say. Obviously, it's always darkest before dawn, and we can make all these catchphrases and things that, but it doesn't help today, and it doesn't help tomorrow, and it doesn't help next week, and it may not help next month. But usually, when things are darkest, is when prices do turn. But it may be very, very uncomfortable for longer than any of us would like to see. But there's brighter days ahead, but may not be it may not be the next couple of months. We'll see.
It's a long ways off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump over and talk a little bit about what's happening in the oil market right now. If you look at all the reports that are coming out of the market, just data point after data point after data point shows a growing supply of oil out there month over month over month. Sean, as you're looking at the oil market, typically this is a good indicator of recessionary activities, right? The amount of oil that's on the marketplace, where that's at. As you're looking at this, Sean, what are your thoughts about that marketplace, and what do you think are some of the driving points there?
Well, we're in a strange situation because 20 years ago, the consumer economy, represented 65 to 70% of economic growth, GDP. Today, AI, technology, and healthcare now represent 70%, 65 to 70% of the GDP of the United States. We know technology is going like gangbusters. They're building out AI. They're building out the data centers. The power grid is being built out. Lots of economic activity in those areas. And we know due to aging demographics, the baby boomers all getting older, people going to a doctor 2-3 times a week, 2-3 times a month. I mean, the expenditures are going up. So those two things are keeping the economy looking good, but the consumer's in a deep recession, whether it's housing, whether it's, car sales, consumer staples, anything you want to look at, consumer is in a deep recession. And even in the AI tech side, because AI is becoming so much more efficient and taking over the tasks of so many tasks that people have been hired for, we're now starting to see the leading edge of jobs being lost due to AI's expansion. So even though AI is actually improving the economy, we're not going to see the typical job growth that you typically would get from the economy growing at that rate. In fact, we're actually seeing job losses, even though AI is moving the economy forward, which then hurts the consumer economy even more and creates greater anxiety, which means if you're worried about your job being next, you're pulling back. You're pulling back. You're doing everything you can to make your budget stretch out. And that's where we're at. And crude oil, I always say, my father's 85 and he does not consume a lot of crude oil anymore. He doesn't drive anywhere. He didn't do anything. He doesn't need a whole lot anymore. I mean, his economic activity is low, other than he consumes healthcare like crazy, right? I love my dad and nothing negative against him, but that's just the reality of those in your age. That's what happens. You consume a lot of healthcare, and that's about it. So, so crude oil being in the 50s now is an indication, that we are in a severe consumer recession. And in the commodities field, that is a problem. Now, if you're copper and you need a whole bunch of copper to build out the power grid, you're fine, right? If you're silver or your rare earth metals, shoot, you can't get enough of the stuff.
Yeah.
But that's the industrial demand side. But if you're talking about, just general consumer consumption, of which gasoline consumption is, and of course we put a lot of corn in the gas tank, it doesn't help, right? It doesn't help. Renewable diesel, you can't disassociate it completely from diesel prices, right?
Yeah.
It's if you don't go out to the restaurant as much, and restaurant sales are struggling, you use less, in the restaurants use a lot of butter and cheese, and butter and cheese go down, and and then everyone's using Ozempic to lose weight, and it's pretty clear that if you take Ozempic, you consume a lot less of your snacky type foods, and a lot of your snacky type foods are made with a lot of wheat. And if those consumer type foods, which are clearly under pressure. Demand for wheat on the margin is, I mean, I'm just trying to like lay out that that's where we're at right now,
Yep.
and so that's it.
Yep. One more thing, I guess, some more talk on the economy a little bit. Jerome Powell, Fed chair, is going to speak today at the National Association of Business Economics, and he's the keynote speaker there. They're expecting to see a 0.25 point reduction in interest rates this month. Do you think there's going to be any big fireworks come out of that speech that he talks about?
One never knows what Jerome Powell is gonna say. What I will say is this: if one's looking ahead, you're supposed to make decisions on interest rates and money printing looking ahead. There's no question that the historic efficiency and productivity increases from artificial intelligence is going to reduce future inflation a lot. It has to. You're going to be able to grow sales with less employees. By that very nature, that means that you're going to see the pressure on prices fall as AI progresses faster and faster and faster. With crude oil under 60, the number one inflationary force in the economy is energy. I just don't see any reason why he wouldn't be willing to continue to lower interest rates to help lower the cost of capital for Americans who are, against it right now, whose debt and interest coming down would help a lot. I mean, I think we just talked about that's who needs the help right now,
Right.
And whatever the tariffs are or not, and whatever short-term cost increases or inflation they may cause, I just don't. I think when you're balancing the whole thing, I think there's no reason why they shouldn't be lowering interest rates with what clearly is going to be one of the greatest deflationary forces that we've ever seen in AI advancing over the next 5 or 10 years in many facets of the economy, which includes job losses, by the way, which is not good. But so when you look at all that, there should be no question that they should do it. But remember, he knows he's losing his job, so he may just feel like he wants to go out with a bang and do it his way. I hope he decides not to do that. But he may.
Yeah.
He may.
He might be it's truth time, baby. All right, we're gonna let it fly.
He may just be like, all right, I already know I lost my job in March or April, whatever it is. So I'm gonna make the current administration pay.
No,
I don't care. I hate to think that way. I like to think that he's thinking the bigger picture. Maybe he is. Maybe he'll come out and say, "Yeah, I'm all on board." But I don't trust him. So.
Yep. I'm right there with you. That's why I asked the question.
I will wait with bated breath, and when he's done, if he hasn't said anything bad, I'll breathe a sigh of relief. Until that point, I am nervous as hell about what he's going to say.
Yep, I am too. All right, Sean, good place to stop. Folks want to reach out to you, get more information about what you're doing over at Hackett Financial. What's the best way to do that?
Our website is Hackett, Hackett, advisors.com. We also have a Twitter page at Faradix11, along with a LinkedIn page. We do put some stuff out from time to time that goes over our forecasts and statistics, cycles, and correlations to see if what we do and we talk about in your show might be of value to those that listen and watch your great show.
Right on. Sean, appreciate you being on, man. We'll catch you again next time.
Sounds good, Casey. Always a blast.
All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcast after these messages.
Well, there they are, mocking you.
See you next year, loser.
That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like ExactApply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
All right, welcome back. I've got Ben from NTS Tire in here. I got Greg Machinery Pete Peterson as well. I mean, you think I'd be able to say your name pretty easy, Greg, but as much as we talk, you think I'd about roll right off the tongue. We're out here talking a little bit about what's happening in the world of tires. And, Ben is in the NTS Tire. If you go to machinerypete.com and you're looking at a piece of equipment, you might have noticed that there's a button there that says, get a tire quote. And that's just NTS that does that. So, Ben, welcome to the show. Glad you can make it.
Thanks, Casey. We're excited for our partnership with Machinery Pete.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it. Ben, before we get into the hard-hitting questions here on the Moving Iron podcast, let's talk a little bit about what you do for NTS Tire and a little history of what NTS Tire is.
Sure. Yep. We're a family business. We're in southwest Minnesota. And really 2012, prior to that, we were your typical local tire shop where we did automotive and we had a service truck doing farm tire work. But really, in 2012 is when we really pivoted to focusing on working with equipment dealers and farms to help them get the right tire system on their equipment. So what happened was we realized that talking to Titan Machinery is, you probably won't mind me mentioning his name, Lucas Hilgeman. He was the manager at Titan Machinery in Marshall, and he'd called one time. He said, "Hey, we need help. We need a tire shop that can help us out." I'd recently joined the business at that point, and sitting down having a conversation with him, what I realized was they wanted somebody who could sell them the tires, the wheels, the hardware, everything they needed to set the equipment up how they wanted it for their customer, and would take in the trades of what's coming off the equipment, so that, because they don't want to be a tire shop, they're selling equipment. So having that conversation, we were also at a pivotal point in our business where we needed to determine what our next phase of growth was going to be. So I spent a lot of time in research setting up processes and vendors to be able to have the right tires available and the wheels, the hardware, and have the pricing at my fingertips. Because when there's a salesman at an equipment dealer wanting to sell a piece of equipment, they want to call, they want to get a quote on doing that whole changeover. They want to know their final price so they can tell their customer and keep the conversation going. So that year, we had it figured out for Titan, and we were already, I guess to back up, the business we bought in 2007, it was called Nest Tire Supply, and he had a unique business that he would buy blem tractor tires, and he would have a route going around selling these blemished and used tractor tires to tire shops, and he did vulcanizing, so you'd trade them in and fix them. So for us, we could trade in these used tires and wheels from these equipment dealers because we already had an outlet to sell them. We already had a route for that. So it all worked together quite well. And after creating the tools so we could, when Titan would call us and say, "Hey, I want a quote on this changeover," we could get them the price right away and we could take their trades. And we always stuck to what we quoted. If we said it's going to be 10 grand to do a changeover or 5 grand, if we'd screwed something up, that was on us. We absorbed it. So by going around talking to all these other equipment dealers saying, "Hey, we can do 1 hour quotes, we can take your trades, and we can get you all the tires and wheels you need. One phone call, we can make this easy for you." Our sales to equipment dealers next in 1 year from 100,000 to over $1 million in 1 year, just by having solving. So that was our first segue into equipment changeovers, was back in 2012.
Okay, right on. And Ben, what do you do? What do you do for NTS Tire?
I'm the CEO. We're a family business, so it's my dad and 2 brothers that own it. My role is the CEO. I love working with teams, organizing the teams, and getting the structure right.
Yep. So I tell you, from a guy that used to work in the used equipment space, going through the reconditioning process with tractors and combines and everything else, trying to find used tires was always something I was looking for, that were still in good shape. Typically when you think of a used tire, you think of a used up tire, and trying to find those tires that had 75, 80, 90% rubber left on them that you come across made a world of difference in the reconditioning process because of 2 things. One, it fit the tractor that you're putting it on, right? You put it on a 3,000 or 4,000 hour something, right? But it also fit the budget that you're trying to work within, right? So I guess talk a little bit about your used tire inventory, what that looks like, and kind of how have you morphed that through the years of doing tire trades and whatnot.
Yeah, that's good point. Yeah, when originally it was about doing the changeovers, which we're kind of right between the sugar beet country and the corn country. So a lot of 22-inch rows versus 30-inch rows. So we were doing a lot of that changeover business. But as we traded in more and more used product, to your point, we started realizing that, hey, we can, if somebody's trading in a tractor that's got bald tires, rather than spend 20 grand on new tires, put 10 grand into it, get some 70% used on there. And then when people go to shop that equipment, you know, the tires, they don't have to worry about replacing them. So that just kind of comes out of the equation. If they're bald, they have to go and they're going to figure 20 grand for new tires. Where if they're 70%, you only put 10 grand into it and you've taken a 20, you know, you added 20,000 in value essentially.
Yep. Yep. From an inventory perspective, can you talk a little bit about what your inventory looks like and roughly kind of all makes, sizes, brands, the whole deal?
Yeah. Yep. Prior to 2012, one of the things we'd attempted was we'd started importing a brand of tractor tires from Turkey, Petless. And
Okay.
we really pushed that brand because we found they were actually very good quality, and we tried to build that brand up. And then a major distributor came along and just wiped out the market for us because they're selling it at 5% over our cost and delivering every day to these tire shops. At that point, we realized that being a wholesaler and building up another tire company's brand was not our niche. And so ever since then, we've made it a focused effort to make sure that we can offer all brands. So we've worked close with different distributors and wholesalers to set up where we can sell Firestone, Michelin, Goodyear, Titan, Alliance, BKT, Mitas, and we can do warranty on them. We can do the rebates. So we worked really hard to essentially make ourselves brand agnostic, if you will, because when we're working with a farm and they're trying to get the right tire set up on their equipment, we're going to understand what their need is, and then say, okay, well, there's a certain brand here that has the best tire for that application. In another situation, it might be a different brand that has the best tire. So it's important that we have access to all brands because they all have strengths and they all have weaknesses in different areas. But yeah, as far as the inventory side, what we really worked on is for new tires, we wanted to have a lot of wholesalers that we could pull from fast so that we could focus. And basically all the inventory we invest our money in is all the trades and buyout deals, overstocks. So that way we're not tying up our money in just standard new stock that wholesalers can get us fast. Instead, we're going to put our money into the trades, the used, and so we've got probably I would say the world's biggest inventory of takeoff used tires, wheels, tracks, anything for agriculture. We've got millions of dollars worth and thousands of tires. So it's a lot of inventory, but it's the online thing we started in 2017, and that really helped grow it as well, because the key with being able to take trades is to be able to sell them again. So having that online presence, now we ship out 15, 20 pallets a day all over the country. So we can move it.
Okay. So I heard you mention tracks, and that was going to be my next question, talking a little bit about tracks. Talk about your track business and what that looks like.
Yeah, so tracks is not a huge part of our business, but it is an important part because there is times where people need to do changeovers on tracks too, where they want to go from 18 to 24 inch. But we're not somebody like, if you're just replacing tracks and we don't have something that's takeoff or used, you might, in a lot of cases, you might be better off just buying them from your local track dealer, when it's just replacing them. But if we do have some takeoff or used, or you're doing a changeover where you want to trade in used ones, that's where we can help. But we sell Firestone, Susi, Camso. In the past, we sold Goodyear before they rebranded to Continental, and now they're something else again, I think.
Yeah. They bounce around. There's those track companies kind of bounce around to different things a lot. Definitely seems like that.
The mid-roller side of it and the undercarriage, that we put a lot of time and effort into, because if you remember when John Deere first came out with their 8RT track machines, in the 18-inch narrow roll ones, they had the mid-rollers were spinning off the rubber in 300 hours.
Yep.
They had a lot of problem with that. And so we really dug into that because, again, we're all about helping solve these kind of problems, help them get the right setup. We found a company out in Pennsylvania that remolded them in poly and had a lifetime no bond failure guarantee. on the bonding, because that's what was happening is the rubber was unbonding from the steel, and so we got set up with them, and to this day that's still hands down the best mid roller we've ever sold. We still sell them, and we do like an exchange program where we get them remolded.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of that.
So talk a little bit about the scope. So you talked about your online, you're talking about shipping tires out all over the place. Talk a little bit about kind of your reach that you have with your customer base right now.
Yeah, so the online presence has really helped to help us be able to work with farms and equipment dealers all over the country, and because of our inventory, a lot of times we can save them a lot of money and our ability to take trades. So the big part was, okay, what about logistics? Shipping is expensive on tractor tires. So again, whenever there's a problem and it's something that we need to resolve because that supports our focus, which is around, ag tire and wheel changeovers, we put a lot of work into resolving it. So I did a ton of research on the whole shipping industry, and I actually started my own shipping brokerage as a side business just to be able to really understand the backside of how shipping companies work. This is a bit of an extreme approach maybe, but we got some of the best rates in being able to ship tires all over the country. And so now in our logistics department, we've got somebody that he used to be one of the top managers at JR Schugel, and so he's helping to, he understands that space and is helping to keep that competitive. Really getting the freight competitive is a big part of it. It still is a killer when you're only buying a $300 tire. You can't pay $200 shipping.
Yeah.
I mean, there is times that if it's let's say it's a 380, 90, 50, and there's a farmer in Louisiana that he's either his option is to pay $2,000 for a new one, or buy a used one for $300 and pay $600 shipping for $900 total. He'll still buy our used tire and ship it down there.
Yeah.
And pay more shipping than he did pay for the tire.
Yep.
Hey, Ben, I'll hop in here. And again, apologize, guys. Machine Repeat Central, we got a little construction going on today, so you might hear some pounding in the background. But Ben, thank you for hosting me a couple weeks ago out in Redwood Falls at your facility. That was just a fantastic day. And hearing you talk about your approach here to help dealers, and farmers, I was really taken by the fact that you guys do your own independent research. And again, you carry and sell all brands of ag tires, and also you specifically focus just on ag tires. But can you talk about the research a little bit that you guys do, again, on behalf of farmers and dealers trying to get into the best solution for the farmers?
Yeah, it really started when we had farmers asking us questions, because we had a focus originally on the equipment dealers, but a lot of times they would refer local farmers to us. And then as we're talking to the local farmers, we're saying, well, why are you just putting these same tires on? Why don't you think about going to this VF tire or a wider tire? And as we're kind of coaching them, they're like, wow, I wish I would have found out about you guys a long time ago. Why doesn't my local tire shop tell me this stuff? And we're like, well, they're just not focused on it. They just crawled out from under your car doing an oil change, and then they're calling and you're asking for a tire. They're just going to tell you the price and get back to work. Where we've been doing these changeovers and we kind of know what works and what doesn't work. And so, but as we do that, the farmers are like, well, hey, can you come to my farm and just tell me what else I need to do? Because they start seeing that we're giving them better solutions. And so really what we decided was, well, if people are calling us for advice and solutions, we need to make sure that we are doing our own research and we're on top of our game. So one of our first studies we did with Nate Furley at Ag Revival in Gibbon, he's got an independent, research company. And so we did a 3-year study with him and just thought, okay, let's look at, if you run 5 different air pressures, a low, medium, high, whatever, how much impact does that actually make on yield? And it is surprising how much, over that 3 years on average, it was like a 5% yield bump just by soil compaction, just by adjusting your air pressure, essentially. So yeah, so since then we've decided, all right, we're gonna ongoing research projects, and so we just kind of decide what's most relevant in a year and focus on it.
I love, Ben, how you're approaching that with the heart of helping farmers and being that trusted, unbiased source on the egg tire side. So I love how you've positioned the business. And again, I think things, for example, your 2-year warranty on the used tires you sell. I mean, in this current environment with farmers trying to stretch out the life of their used equipment longer, things like that. And then also, I mean, the investment you guys have made on the wheel side. I mean, I was blown away by how advanced you guys there, purchasing the company out of Olivia, Minnesota, do custom wheels. Let's talk about that a little bit. Again, your commitment to kind of helping farmers or dealers find that right solution, tires and wheels.
Yeah, that's good. It's again, by being focused on ag and focused on helping farms get the right tire system on their equipment, that's what's helped us go narrow and deep, I guess you could say. And so part of that was one of our constraints again was, we worked a lot in the past with Unverferth and Wold, places like that build wheels, and they're great. But when it comes to highly custom or doing something a little bit out of the box, that's where sometimes we'd get some pushback. They wouldn't want to do it because it was, they're set up for mass manufacturing. So when the opportunity came up, Kelch and Tell Tires, when they're only 20 miles north of us, and they built wheels. Over the years, they'd stagnated a bit, as the existing owner was trying to kind of get out of the business. So when we bought it, we brought in some new equipment, switched them over to powder coat from wet paint, did things like that. But the beauty of it gives us the ability now to custom build, refurbish, remanufacture our wheels. So it builds on each other, because if you're custom building wheels and you're dependent on buying rim blanks and centers, you kind of have fixed pricing. But for us, we do that, but also now we can draw from our used inventory of wheels and cut and chop them, So we might not have new blanks in a certain size, but I might have that blank in a used wheel on the lot that's a trade-in, and now I can cut that center out, put a new center in it, and I can create a wheel that nobody else in the country has a blank on it, which is the outer rim part. So it's given us a lot of flexibility to get creative on the wheel side of it.
Yeah, I'm just a huge fan of what you guys are building out there. And again, the 2-year warranty on your used tires, and getting to meet your staff. And Casey, you can probably punch up that get tire quote button in our website, machinerypete.com. And Ben, when we were chatting, I think you're triangulating the perfect solution here, because when people are shopping for, a used tractor, combine, sprayer, as someone who's compiled auction prices all these years, what affects the price? Well, the tires. And how frustrating to find that item you want, but the tires aren't right. So adding that button now, one click. I mean, your folks, I can't remember, do you have 4 or 5 people back in your sales customer center there that within an hour, when someone clicks this button, they get back to them with an answer?
Yep. So we got, Pat and Sky and Ryan and Nick and Craig. There's 5 that the key there is we've built that team around people who have a strong ag background. They get it. They understand what it is to be packing silage, or, what it is to be pulling a chisel plow, whatever that is. So it's that's a key part of building the right team. Again, that's the benefit of narrow and deep. We don't have to worry about automotive or semi-truck tires. We just want to be focused on the ag side. But that tire quote button is exciting for us. I think that's because honestly, Casey, you can talk about this, but the salesman who does the hard yards of understanding the customer and then setting that equipment up to meet what they want, that's the good salesman. That's the guy that moves a lot of equipment.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. So I pulled up the screen here. So this is machinerypete.com. Excuse me. Machinerypete.com. And if you're looking at where this is at, so we've had these buttons in there for a while. You get your financing, you get your shipping quote, you get your warranty, those kind of things. But the newest one here, like we were just talking about, is this tire quote. And then you simply click on that tire quote. There we go. Computer wants to work. And you have a nice form to fill out. So walk us through the process, Ben, what this looks like. I fill this form out. What happens next?
Yeah, so our goal is always to have a quote back within 1 hour. And that's a full changeover quote. So what happens is it sends us a link to the equipment. And then if you're putting in here that you want to go to LSW, wide tires, or whatever that is, the first thing we're probably going to do is actually pick up the phone and try to call, because one thing that really helps is to understand the background of what you're going to do with the equipment. So if you're going to pack silage or you're going to pull a chisel plow, that's how we can make sure that we're getting you the right product. But if you're busy and you can't answer, we're going to still get a quote to you anyway. So within an hour, you're going to have a quote emailed to you with the price of what you want to put on it, as well as the trade-in value on what's coming off the equipment, which that we can get right off the listing. So really all you have to do is say what you want to have the equipment set up with, and within an hour, you're going to have a hard number on what that's going to cost to do that, no matter where you are in the country. The one caveat to that is if it's outside of our service area, you might need to unbolt and bolt it on yourself or have a local place do it. But the tires will come mounted on the rim, so it's just a matter of unbolting and bolting.
All right, so you brought up a good point. The service side of anything, if any business, is always the paramount of that. So I guess talk a little bit about your service area and the service centers that you have.
Yeah, it's good. So our goal is to eventually be able to offer the service nationwide. So how are we going to do that? Well, that's the challenge we've been working on for several years now, actually building up towards it. And we finally started kicking it off last August. We started our first remote field service hub in southeast Minnesota. And since then, we've added 2 more, and our third one is in development right now. And essentially, we run them lean. So it's the way it works. It's essentially one service tech and a service truck like a service truck operator and a service truck with a crane on it. And then we find a building to base out of and enough place to stage inventory and, park the service truck and the telehandler. And then now what we can do is we run shuttle trucks to these service hubs, and then they can go out and hang the tires on the equipment. So our goal is next year we're going to be adding 4 more. And we're keeping about 150 miles between service hubs, and we're going to be growing them fast. The following year is going to be 2 a quarter. It's going to expand fast, and the goal is to just be able to make it easy for a farm or an equipment dealer to just pick up the phone, say what they need, bam, we can get them a quote on the whole package, including service. Next thing they know, truck's on the farm, and we bring it back, shuttle them back to our processing center where we inspect the trades and everything. And eventually we're going to need to open more processing centers, but we figure we can get up to 15 service hubs that are still within reach around our Redwood Falls facility.
Okay. So when you're going through the process, I fill the form out. I want to get a new set of tires and do the thing I'm doing. What's that process look like? What information do you need from me so you can assess what I'm sending back to you as far as trades?
Well, really, we're going to base it off of the equipment listing when you do it from Machine Repeat. That's the benefit of filling out the form. A lot of times the equipment dealer sales reps will just call us and describe it to us. We do have, where it's subject to final inspection. If it comes back and we're getting something that's way different than what we were told, well, that's going to get valued accordingly. Well, 95% of the time, that's not an issue. If it's close, if it's within that 10%, it's good to go. But yeah, it is final inspection. But like I say, we've got really good at evaluating the trades, and it's important to us to minimize the amount of times we've got to break the bad news that, hey, these things are not what we expected. So we're going to make sure that we keep that to the bare minimum. It's not good for business.
Sure. Yeah. But you also on the same side of that, if I say they're good and clean, they come back all stubble checked. That's a whole different area. What is the I guess as you're looking through this, and I'm a farmer here, and I need a new set for my tires for my tractor and my farm, where I switched up a little bit. I'm going from 30-inch rows down to 20-inch rows or something like that. As you're doing this, how do you walk them through? Tell me about your operation and what you're doing. How do you make sure they get the right set of tires with the right weight and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so we like to ask a lot of questions, so tell me a little bit about your operation. Is it corn and soybeans? Are you in what part of the country are you in? I mean, obviously we probably know that right up front, so we kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with. And then we're going to understand what the equipment's used for. So if it's used for pulling a grain cart and spraying, for example, I'm going to find some tires that are good for roading, because you're doing a lot of roading with that potentially. And what size of an operation are you? Do you travel 100 miles between fields, to be extreme, or is it all within 5 miles of you? That's gonna determine some of what I recommend for tires as well. And then, I like to really understand and coach them on air pressure. That's huge. That's when it comes to precision farming, I believe that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on every farm right now where they can increase yield dramatically with very little input by just thinking about air pressure and going around and, and understanding what they can change out. Like, let's take a planter. A lot of these planters, they'll come with truck tires on them. And so you're going down the field with this truck tire inflated to 110 psi, and you're creating a highway that you just created some serious compaction. If you can spend that much money and switch them over to a VF radial tire where you can get that air pressure down to 40 or 50 psi, now all of a sudden your yield bump in there's a lot of rows you're impacting. When you got 4 tires down the center of that planter, you're impacting 8 rows, and 8 rows for every pass is a lot of yield. If you can get that air pressure down where you can increase that root growth, it's a big difference.
That, by the way, is the focus, folks, that blew me away. Again, thinking of your farm, your operation, and how they can make you better, particularly when dollars are tight like they are right now.
That's the thing. If you make a small investment that reaps big benefits in 1 year, that could make the difference between being profitable and being break even, or being break even and not losing money.
Well, Ben, the last question I have for you, and Greg, if you have any follow-up questions when we get done here. When I'm looking at this, there's a lot of options out there for tires, right? A lot of different companies that do this, and the time and effort that you guys spend on really understanding the marketplace and understanding the operations and those kind of things. If I'm watching this, why should I call NTS Tire to get my tires? What's the big thing that I'm going to gain by working with you guys?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that we're going to take the time to understand your operation and make sure that you get the right tire setup. Simple as that sounds, I think it would be remarkable if you really did the analysis on the cost of not having the right tire setup on your equipment versus having the right tire setup. That's invaluable. A lot of times we can also save you money on the deal, but that's really a side benefit. It's really just talking to people who understand the ag segment and are looking out for the interest of the farmer and helping get that equipment set up with the right tire system for their operation. I think that's the biggest value. We also make it easy because we're doing it all day long. We can get you the whole quote accurately, and we can take your trades and just you don't have to worry about the wrong offsets. One of our guarantees is we'll get you the right tires and wheels, or we'll make it right. Essentially what that means is, if you've told us the make and model of the equipment, we said, all right, here's what you need, and you get it, and for some reason the bolt pattern's wrong or the offset's not right, we're gonna fix that up for you on our dime. So that's kind of a brand promise we've made also that kind of ties into our 2-year warranty on all used products we sell, and then we do also a 5-year warranty on our wheels that we build.
I think there, folks, you can hear some of the commitment and focus that attracted me and Casey in our Machinery Repeat business to working with Ben and his company, NTS Tire Supply. Now, Ben hasn't mentioned it. Ben's a very humble guy, but his family has deep personal roots going back specifically to ag tires. I mean, Ben, I think it's 98 years. Was it your great-grandfather, 1927?
Yeah, it's kind of a neat story because this was from my mother's side of the family. She was from Des Moines originally. And yeah, my great-grandfather, he was originally switching farms over from steel wheels to rubber tires. I think it was like 1927 he was a Firestone dealer back then. And he would demonstrate to them, this is a story we were told, that he used to go out and demonstrate to them how he would take 2 tractors. What were they in 1927, Pete?
Oh, I suppose we had our A's and B's, and yeah, it's weren't as many 8R370s running around back then, were there?
So it's probably an A or B and
D maybe.
And then so he would put a gallon of fuel in each tractor, one with rubber tires, one with steel wheels, and then run them both down the field till they ran out of fuel. And the rubber tractor tire would be half again as far as the steel wheel one, and that was demonstrating fuel savings. And then the other thing was he would have them run over his foot with the rubber tractor tire, and he'd say, okay, now do that with the steel one. And then the point was soil compaction. So fascinating to me, because to this day, we talk about fuel savings and soil compaction, 100 years later. It's crazy. We're still solving the same problems.
That's why, in my humble opinion, if I'm a farmer, or if I'm a farm equipment dealer, or frankly, an auction company, I want to hook my wagon to you guys, Ben, and what you're doing with NTS Tire Supply there. Even on the auction side, we've talked about in my world, folks looking for that tractor, that combine, that sprayer. And since COVID, especially now, they click the button, you buy it online, you're 8, 9, 10 states away. But the sticking point is always, are the tires right? So the opportunity to just reach out, go to ntstiresupply.com, great website, talk to your great people. They'll give you a quote, again, within the hour most times, about that item you're looking at bidding on while you're in the cab on that thing that's selling at 1 p.m. So if I get this thing bought, you guys buy the tires that they don't want, then what's the cost? I just think it's a brilliant setup. So brilliant that, folks, a little teaser here, but we're actually going to do a special TV episode about Ben and the company he's built there, NTS Tire Supply. That's how big a fan I am.
Yep.
Exciting.
Looking forward to that. That'll be good. That'll be a good deal. So, final thoughts here. Ben, you got any final thoughts you want to throw out before we close things down?
I guess just thinking of the equipment dealer sales people on the call, what differentiates a great salesman from an average salesman? Obviously knowing your equipment, knowing your product inside and out, but knowing your customer and their needs, and then doing the extra mile to get that customer what he needs. If he calls in, oh, I don't have what you need, he's going to keep shopping around. If instead you're like, all right, I understand what you need, let me do some work. Well, then it's having the right partners. If you can call NTS and say, hey, I got a customer, he's interested in an 8R tractor, I got exactly what he needs, but it's got the wrong tires. And bam, we can get you a quote. Then you can call the guy back and say, all right, I got what you need. I can have it set up how you want it in 3 days. I got to get the tires swapped out, but we can make that happen quick. Well, that salesman is going to move a lot more equipment than the one that just says, I don't have what you need right now. Do the extra miles of getting the right tire set up on that equipment for the customer, and you're going to move more equipment. It's just simple math. That's really what we make easy. And for the farmers on the call, we've already talked about that, but honestly, we love helping farms be the best farmer.
Yep, for sure.
A good long-term business right there, folks. I love it.
Yep, for sure. Well, Ben, I appreciate you taking time to be on the podcast, talking a little bit about what's going on, and we'll catch you again next time.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you hosting.
Right on. Stay tuned for Moving Iron Podcast after these messages.
Get the latest markets, weather, and rural news whenever it works for you. Farm Journal TV is on Roku, Fire TV, and mobile. Try it for free for 14 days and take ag with you everywhere.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Got Aaron Findle back on, talk about what's happening in the market. Aaron, how you doing, bud?
I am terrific, sir. And yourself?
If I was any better, I couldn't stand it. That's how good I am, sir.
Well, good thing you're sitting down then.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. How you been, man? What's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, in this neck of the woods, let's see here. Things are moving on the iron side. You have to be wildly open-minded.
That's a good way to put it. Open-minded.
on most items to do anything. Weather-wise, which is no different than your weather, except 5 degrees each way.
Plus
we have had out here on the high plains, we've had tastes of fall recently. Yeah. We had a couple weeks ago, we got like an inch, almost the entire territory, 3/4 to an inch, and it was dreary and chilly for a couple days. Had a front move through. We had 85 Thursday. Yeah. Yesterday the high was like 54, but the rest of the week we're supposed to be back into the 70s. It's kind of hard on solar powered fellas like myself days like the last few.
Yeah, so that's
I'd rather be out in a sunny 40 by 40 day.
Yeah.
Than a calm, cloudy, just 60-degree day even.
Yeah, I would.
Gotta have that sun, man.
I despise the wind with every ounce of my being. So this is typical this time of the year for the Panhandle, right? And I think this is pretty typical when you start moving west and north. Is that when it finally does come, it stays, right? It doesn't. You're not going back to 90, right?
Right.
So it's in September you'll get those. You get those 60-degree days, but then you'll get those like, oh, it's 90 again, right? And we're kind of moving away through there. So if you look where the forecast is at today, I mean, tomorrow is kind of the warmest day of, I guess Sunday a little bit too, but you're kind of just peeking your head over 70 a little bit.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time it's, 60s, 50s, we got some 30-degree overnights and those kind of things coming our way. So
yep.
It's that time of the year, and
it's fall, y'all.
I love fall. It's my favorite season. Multiple reasons. Biggest reason one is I love sitting outside and watching TV. It's my favorite thing to do. Smoke a cigar, have a whiskey. It's my favorite thing to do. And this is the time of the year where I can do that, where I don't have to try to worry about 900 pounds of mosquitoes trying to feast off of my flesh while I'm sitting out there. Also, it's football season, right? Y'all love that.
I would have started with that personally, but
the third part of it too is, which is what I should have started with, because that's my real thing, is that it's pheasant season. It's just here. We got 2 weeks to go.
Oh,
2 weeks to go, and I will have my shot at shooting at pheasants. I mean, I'm gonna get it. I got my shot at shooting at them, right? And I think that's what I love about fall, and typically in the Panhandle, it's, of all the seasons, fall is the one that kind of, you get a little bit of it, right? You don't have these fast swings from summer to blizzard, even though that has happened, right? But typically in fall, you get a kind of a gradual move into winter, whereas in spring, you have winter, April, and then spring. You know what I mean? So it's a big difference.
It's more consistent than spring is. Spring out here is I'll just be honest, it's a shit show, man.
Yeah.
Your options are 60 by 60.
Right.
Snow.
Yep.
Or both of those in the same week, and it was 30 for 2 weeks before, and it'll be 80 until June after.
Yeah. Yeah, like those April snowstorms that you come through, and the flakes are, about the size of a basketball falling out of the sky. But
it almost hurts.
They're moving about 95 miles an hour. It's like somewhere between a raindrop and a hailstone. It's kind of right there in the middle, That's what you get. So to me, I think spring is just a tough time. But fall, I love fall. Fall is just that time of the year where you get a nice transition into winter.
We work in ag, fall's paychecks.
Yeah, it's harvest and all that. Yep.
Yeah, everybody's getting paid.
Everybody's getting paid. Yep.
Spring calf guys are going to wean and get calves sent off right after harvest, and everybody gets a paycheck time of year.
Yep. And except for I could go on my little rant about the USDA right now, but and how much?
Hey, that's a 4-letter word.
It is.
There you go. Add it to the queue.
Sometimes I believe the USDA has their proverbial heads up to proverbial asses, and
proverbially,
and I don't know what they look at or what they see or what they come up with, but independent people go out and do the same thing that they're doing, and they're wildly different. But the independent folks are pretty close to each other, unless you're Stonecks, and then they're mountains old.
Here's what I know the USDA is not doing. They're not busy out helping the sheep farmer ever.
Yeah. That's true. I don't know they're out busily help out anybody, to be honest with you. So,
well,
another topic, another day.
Technically, they're not helping anybody right now because they're shut down. So here we are.
That is very true. Very, very true. All right, man. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the tractor marketplace. AEM, which is the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, which is the association that all the Deere Case, New Holland, all these different folks report to about what they're doing, so they can functionally have a third-party track market share. Basically, is what they're doing there. So that's what it really comes down to. They had a flash report come out, which they come out with one every month, and September 2025 was up 4% in tractor sales the same month last year, right? So if you go back to September 2024, they increased. So the total number of tractors produced in that time frame for 2025 was 17,729, and the tractors that sold in 2024 were 17,033, so you're talking a 4% swing. Now, if you dive down into that and you really start peeling back the layers of the onion, like, whoa, what are these things? What makes up this 4%? We start working our way through that, and what we see is that basically under 40 horsepower tractors were up 3% last year over year. 40 to 100, under 100 horsepower, so 40 horsepower to under 100 horsepower were up 17%, and then that was it, right? That's where your growth came from. Because if you go back and look at year over year statistics, two-wheel drive tractors, which basically is 101 horsepower to 174 horsepower, those were down. Okay, there we go. They were down 12%, right? Four-wheel drive tractors were down 33%, and combine sales were down 22% year over year, right? Which, not a big shocker, right? We've been talking about that. We've been talking about that the whole time. So when you read that, your first sense is, oh man, look, because that's when I read it the first time. I was like, oh, well, see, we've been talking about how the market's kind of slowly starting to kind of churn a little bit, kind of come back. Because tractor's the one thing, regardless of manufacturer, you can order a tractor any time of the year and get it in a build slot. Whereas usually, yeah, very good point. But if you're looking at anything else, chopper, combine, sprayer, planter, they all have order writing periods. Those order writing periods dictate when they get built, when they get put out, right?
Yep.
And typically you can only order them during that order writing periods, right? So that's when it comes up. So tractors is that one thing that you can kind of follow along and see health in the marketplace, and which also I think is the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why tractors are one of the big leading indicators. Because, hey, if I got money to burn at the end of the year and I need to buy something, it's usually a tractor, because that's usually what's available, right? It's typically what's there.
Well, and it's easier to trade for a tractor than the combine or the sprayer.
Sure. Yep. So if you look and see where this is coming from, coming out of the Moving Iron Summit, the folks I talked with, all of the numbers that I'm reading there make complete sense as far as the downside of stuff, right?
Right.
I'm surprised that the 100 plus horsepower tractor thing, which I think, now that I go back and look at this, I think that 100 plus horsepower is everything that's a quote unquote row crop tractor all the way through till you get to four-wheel drives. And that would be, so it could be all the way from a 6105 John Deere tractor all the way through a Fendt 1050, right? I mean, that would be in there. I think that's how that works. And then a four-wheel drive, obviously, is your traditional articulated four-wheel drive tractor. I think that's what they're talking about.
Maxim, Puma, and Magnum.
That's right. All the way through the entire portfolio, if you will. So if you're looking through that, this is the stuff that I'm actually shocked at. That's only down 12%, because the folks I talked with, where they were trending at on those, especially those quote unquote row crop tractor marketplace. And when they were talking row crop tractor, they were talking more like 300 plus horsepower stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they were really talking about. And the conversations I had would, hey, we normally sell 200 of these a year, and we're selling 89 this year, right?
Right.
All right. We're selling we're less than half, right? We're 40%, 30%, something like that, which means that you're off 70% from the year before, right? So this four-wheel drive thing, that's not a big shocker to me. I've had this theory for a long time that, and you and I've talked about this a million times, that when sprayers are up, sprayer sales are up, four-wheel drive sales are down. And when they flip back around, four-wheel drives are high, sprayers are typically down. I think that has everything to do with no-till farming practices. Even though you're no-till, there's a time when you have to go back in and do some kind of tillage, whether it's minimal till or full on till or whatever it might be, because of the weed pressure, compaction, so on and so forth.
You know, part of that too, Casey, could be on the average farm, if such a thing exists anymore. The average farm that has a 4-wheel drive, let me say, it's the big horse. It's never it's not the planter tractor. It's not the main tractor. It's the big horse and sits over there and it's ready to go when we need it. I think that mentality is what feeds into that market being so fickle, even apart from your sprayer opposite alignment, which is true. I think part of what fuels that is more of a, oh man, that it's trading the 4-wheel drive on the farm for that farm that has one, you know, or a couple, the very highly diversified machinery farm,
Sure. Yeah.
Regardless of crops. But, you know, we got a few 8s, we got a 9 or 2, that Magnum, Steiger, what have you. I think because it's the big horse over there, it's ready to go, it's kind of an afterthought. It's always, wow, man, we got to get tires on this. Let's trade it.
Right.
Wow, we got that many hours on this thing already? Whew, we better do something. It's not, okay, we keep the planter tractor 3 years. We keep, you know, the strip till tractor 2 years, that kind of thing. And I think that is a big factor. It's hard to, I mean, it's hard to put a ruler to it.
Right.
You know, but I feel there's that everybody's favorite words in the equipment business, the emotion side of it. My gut tells me that has a big impact on that market, knowing on the farm that's typically the life of that rig.
Yeah. Nothing too about the 4-wheel drive is that it's not, you know, back in the day it's our tillage tractor. It's our
right.
That kind of, now it's your tillage tractor. Yeah, it's your grain cart tractor. Yeah, it's your planting tractor. Yeah, it's covering a wider spectrum of machinery.
It's evolving to become the tractor.
Yeah.
Or your farm now has 2 of the tractor.
Right. Yep. And so I think as you kind of watch that thing move along, that which also would have, you know, if you look at it from that perspective, you're going to start seeing some move there. The other side of this too is the size and scope of those machines too, and price of those machines also have limited who's going to buy those, right? You can still go out and get your 370 horsepower, 400 horsepower, 4-wheel drive,
right?
But how many of those you see on the market right now? No, you don't really see that many of those machines out there on the marketplace right now. You don't. Right. Where you really start running into those, where you start running into the numbers start to climb is 500 plus, right? And that's when you start seeing those numbers.
Oh yeah, because that's case in point. There's your horses.
Yep.
To your other point, we used to live in a world where under 400 horse on your 4-wheel drive better have 3-point PTO.
Right.
PTO on all of them, dear Lord. PTO and high flow, don't order one without.
Right.
But to really get nitpicky, we used to have a world where under 400, that thing better have 480s on it, 3-point PTO. Throughout the high plains, and I'd say even Western Corn Belt. Now that world is under 5.
Yeah.
Like if you have a 9R 490, oh God, I hope it has 480s and PTO.
Like, yeah.
Like that's an 8960 and a 6400 together.
Yeah.
And I hope it's set up for row crop.
Yeah. Well, that's
just the world we're in now.
But that other side of that too is the explosion of horsepower on the row crop tractor side of it.
Right.
You know, I mean, now you're looking at
500 horse.
Yeah, 500 horsepower tractors all the way down. I mean, so really, if you're from 370 to 475, kind of in that range, there's a good swath of tractors in there that folks are like, well, I don't need that small 4-wheel drive anymore. I'm going to get this little row crop tractor. little row crop tractor now and put it back into service and use that instead. And then I still have my big 4-wheel drive if I have a need for that for my whatever it might be that's coming out there. And the other side of it too is on the row crop tractor side. Probably it's been 10 years that you've really been able to push this through, but running a 24-row planter with a row crop tractor is not necessarily something that is that new, right? It's like I said, it's been about, in the last 10, 15 years, you've kind of seen more and more and more and more of that coming in. But it used to be like, I got a 12-row planter and a 16-row planter, and I'm kind of maxed out my row crop, my tractor,
Right.
Well, now, 24-row planter or something like that's not a big deal. You start going past that, even now you're starting to get into the some 36-row stuff that you're still able to do with a quote unquote row crop tractor before you start moving into that. You know what I mean?
Because your row crop tractor's bigger than an 8650.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Way bigger.
So now you're working your way through all that. That changes the dynamics of what 4-wheel drives come into play and what they look like. And now you're starting to see bigger tillage units come out, heavier, deeper, bigger and deeper tillage pieces. You see a 9-row 9-shank ripper or something like that come through, and like, damn, that takes a lot of horsepower. Well, now you're seeing like 13 and 15.
Right. That's what I was going to say, 13.
And some of the stuff you're seeing, and now some of those, deep ripping applications, those kind of things, what you see there. But all those things now are getting bigger because there's more available horsepower to start pushing these things through. So go back and talk a little bit about what we see happening on those smaller tractor size. That to me is, I would, even though it's up 3% to me, that's you might as well just say it's flat, because if they're up 3% again next month, that's held the sign. But if you look at how the economy is operating right now, there's not, because that's a rural lifestyle guy. That's the 5-acre-itis guy. That's the those kind of things come into play that have a different fundamental buying structure than a true ag tractor does.
But real quick, you get in south of the Mason-Dixon and up, even all the way up in the Eastern time zone, those are your loader tractors, man.
Oh, sure. Yeah, 100%.
So
yeah,
the calf market could have had an impact on that.
Could have.
On those 40 to 100s. Because you think about it, there's a lot of loader tractors. You go from East Texas to the ocean. You go from Arkansas to the ocean. You go from Kentucky to the ocean. There's a lot of places in that part of the world where they'd love to have a 6R 155 loader tractor, but it'd blow their mind at the same time, Whereas in our part of the world, that's where loader tractors start.
Right.
Why? What are you doing with that 5085? Well, that's we pull the harrow around the rocks. That's where we're at. If it's under 100 horse, it doesn't do anything in our part of the world other than there's your rural lifestyler guy.
And another good point that you made there, I think that's a valid point. Also, the thing too is when you go south and east, you get away from the 5-foot bale round bale.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
6-foot bale, because you're doing a lot of 5x5s, 4x5s, and they don't need the H360 with a grapple.
Right.
They got an H310 with a single spear, and
smaller bales and require less horsepower. So that's a good point. That's another good point.
They don't need the horse. The baler is smaller, requires less horse.
Yep.
The bale itself is smaller, requires less horse, and that's where we're at. Just like down there, you don't see 568, 569, 560M balers.
Right.
That's where your 445, like, where'd you find this at?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And
it's kind of like a 348, only it rounds the small square, only it rounds the edges.
Yeah. And that, again, that could be making a play into that too. And again,
from an ag sense, that's the only market that could funnel into that. Otherwise, It is broad stroke lifestyle.
Because that 40 to 100 horsepower tractor was up 17% same day last year. So that makes sense. That could be the big driving factor there, because the 3% up on the under 40 horsepower thing, that could just be, not much driving there. So you're looking at home, rural lifestyle guys, 5-10 acre folk, those kind of things kind of in there. So obviously combine's not a big shock there. I mean, you look where the combine market is. A lot of conversations I had with folks at the Moving Iron Summit were around, we're not selling combines this year. And I'm like, okay, so what's that mean? They're like 0. We're not selling combines this year. And I was like, really? Not one? And he's like, nope, we're not. We're passing on a lot of stuff. When you're looking at dealerships that sell 100, 200 combines a year, and they're telling you they're going to sell 50, that's a big move. That's a big move. So,
you and I, just since we're talking about combines real quick, Casey, little boots on the ground report. The last 10 days to 2 weeks has been a substantial amount of combine calls. Mm-hmm. It's just the last minute year does not stop. Yep. And to your point, what we just talked about with the 179, and these aren't tax buying, these are because we have to. It's the same thing. We shove that last minuteness all the way to year end. So you have a year end buying period, but it's all the have tos.
Right.
And we think it's going to be a better buy in 25 than 26. That's what's fueling that. The have to, and they're cheap now. Let's jump on it.
Yeah.
That market is alive and well out there. But it's funny because, to our point last week, it shows itself as we're hitting a year-end buying cycle. Now we're getting to the end of the have-tos.
Yep. No, I it's exactly.
And even there, Casey, it's still not necessarily. It's not everybody running to town for sub 300-hour machines, to get past the new one. These are guys that used to trade at 1,000 who were up at 18-2 on SEP.
Right.
We're back, just more proof again and again. We're just back to the have-tos.
Right. Yep. And the stuff you're seeing selling at auction and stuff that's selling at the dealership, it's like we talked about on here, we're talking about that 7 to 10 year old stuff or plus,
right.
That's got that 5,000 to 7,000 hours on it. Those are things that are 150,000 or less, right? That's what's moving. And I think that's the biggest.
I'd say up to 250, just because guys are more numb to seeing the 4 and the 5 on ads.
Yeah.
Which is honestly helped them become more open-minded to more, I guess is is probably the best way to say that. They might have started with, nope, it's got to be 2, but, you can get this if you jump to 250. Oh, well, let's talk about it. A lot of that conversation.
Yep. And I think that's that's kind of what we've been talking about, and that's, again, shows that we're at the bottom of the marketplace, in my opinion, and another indicator of that. So the good thing about where we're at right now, if you can shine any light on that, the good thing that where we're at right now is that there's really only one way, and that's up, right?
Right.
And you kind of start watching things move and how things pour through here. So it's going to be a great end of the year, and or at least great fun to watch the end of the year anyway, and kind of watch things move together. And I still think there's going to be some sales in there. That's like you talked about. There's the end of year stuff that we see coming. Is going to be like some mad dash to beating down the door to get them to your dealership to buy something? No, but it's going to be a lot. I think there'll be a lot more interest than we saw this time last year. I think it's going to show. So the last quarter of the year. Can't believe it's already halfway through October already. So
that is pretty wild.
Yeah. All right, man. Good place to stop. Folks want to get some information about your High Plains wholesale deals of the week. What's the best way to find that?
Well, you can find High Plains Wholesale on Facebook and TikTok. I share those same videos on my own Facebook under my name, Aaron Fintel, and my X or Twitter. Same thing, just my name, nothing creative. Or you can call or text me, 308-760-1193. Chat anytime.
Awesome, man. Well, you guys can find me Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, X. I don't know. I'm all over the place. Either Moving Iron LLC or Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out there. You can listen to the audio version of this podcast over at AgWeb, and you can see it there. You can also hear and listen to and watch the video version of this over on the YouTube channel, Farm Journal YouTube channel. Check it out there. You see everything there. Also, want to thank Greg Machinery, Pete Peterson, Aaron Fintel, and I want to thank Ben from NTS Tire for being on this edition of the Moving Iron Podcast. With that, I'm Casey Seymour. Smooth Iron folks, out.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.